Hi again. My last video got cut off, my battery died, so I was talking about Mike's experience with JOeY. The bird's talking, so. But Mike's experience with JOeY was, again, taking him to the most remote ice station in Antarctica and the McMurdo ice station, I believe, and telling him not to be afraid of death, not to be afraid of anything. He's also come to Mike and taken him on journeys, and shown him where he's at. He takes Mike on boats, shows him he's sailing. So, to tell Mike, don't be afraid of death, that's when the fun begins. That's JOeY. That's JOeY. And I think one of the reasons he comes so strongly, more so, I kind of try to figure out, why aren't you coming to me with this verbiage? Well, because he knows that I'm going to believe that it's coming to Mike and JOeY a lot more than if it comes to me. So, coming to Mike and JOeY is pretty smart of JOeY, or JOeY coming to Mike and Bobby is smart, because he knows I'm going to really believe them. Otherwise, I'm going to have that skeptical, egoic part of me say, that can't be true. JOeY, that's not JOeY. That's me making this up. So he goes to the people. He's even gone to my brother John, my brother Andy. He goes to the people that I least expect him to go to, that don't study this stuff, that aren't involved in any of this. And he gets through to them like gangbusters. And then they call me and tell me, he's laughing, he's fine, he lets, and the most profound things he says to them is to tell my mom to stop worrying about me and tell her to lighten up. Stop taking this place seriously, Now later on, I found that out from the people who had near-death experiences. One of the things that happened in this play as time went on was, after I was on the near-death experience forums and I was reading all the accounts, that was a lot right there, to read the accounts. But I said to myself, I want to meet these people. I want to meet them face to face. I want to get to know who they are. And I thought, how am I going to do that? Well, the universe, the higher self, threw that right in there, and created. And as I was reading the forums, I saw that they had conferences called the International Association of Near-Death Studies had conferences, and I found their website, and they had a conference where you could go to and meet Dr. Raymond Moody, who I actually had met back in the 90s. I went and visited him because I wanted to find out about my husband. I was even searching then. But they had other people, they had lots of people coming to these conferences, scientists, philosophers, near-death experiencers, a big combo. It was, combo deluxe. So I thought, well, what the heck, I'm going to go to a conference. I'm going to meet these people. I'm going to find out face to face. Because reading their stories was one thing, but meeting them face to face, I wanted to hear what my heart was saying when I heard their stories. Hearing what my heart was saying to me about it. Again, the search was finding out if my son was okay. That's it. Trying to understand the joy that he's in. So I did. I went to the, I believe it was the 2011 International Association of Near-Death Studies Conference. And when I arrived, I went there a day early because I like to take one day to sort of settle myself. And synchronicity was really going on. And it was too obvious to even, when you notice synchronicity, you really notice it. It's like really heavy duty. So the day I got there was the same day that PMH Atwater arrived, and she came walking in the front door right after I did, and so I had some time to spend with her and talk to her about JOeY, and my intuition was confirmed right away that, there is no death. And she's a very strong woman. She got that point across to me pretty quickly. And so I ran into her right away, even before the conference started. And I had so many experiences there. I felt as though, because I was in this group of people who had had these experiences, I felt as though I were being lifted into a higher vibration, if that makes sense. That sounds so new agey to say, but there was this lift that occurred. It was as though I was, the veil was very thin, because there were all these people there who had been in this place and they knew, so there was a very thin veil there. And I met people exactly who I was supposed to meet, exactly at the right time. I was confronting people and saying, did you have an experience? Could you tell me about it? And I'd sit on the couch with them in the lobby, hotel lobby, and they would tell me all about what happened to them, and tears would form in their eyes, and they were in such joy, and they would just assure me and assure me and assure me and assure me that JOeY was fine, and that there is no death, that that's nothing, so I met so many of them. I couldn't tell all the stories of these people I met, but one was Ellen Dye, and she's on my Facebook page, and she taught me about, she was probably the most down-to-earth person I've ever met in my life, and one of the things I learned from her was that it was laughter. That laughter was and love, that the laughter there in that place, when you're no longer using this form or imagining yourself up to be a body, is so incredible that that's the closest you can get here to that place. That's home. That's what they kept telling me, all of them. That's home, and this is the fake place. This is just a temporary little kind of bus stop, shadow place. One of them said to me, have you ever seen a photograph? And I said, yeah. And they said, here's a negative, here's the real photograph. I said, yeah, this is the negative, this third dimensional perception. The real photograph is when you no longer are using this form. Then you're in reality. So this isn't reality. That's what they kept telling me. This isn't reality. That's the reality. That's the real place. This is the fake place. This is a play. Ellen called it a comedy. See it as a comedy. And she was the one who, and a lot of them told me this besides her, that this, I chose this. I made this choice. I wrote this script. I was part of the co-authoring everything. I was more than willing to do it. I couldn't believe that, but I accept that. Talk about taking full responsibility, right? There goes judgment and blame. You can't blame anybody. You can't judge anybody now. I was still judging and blaming myself a little bit about a lot of things, but I didn't know it at the time. I thought I might have gotten rid of that, but that's toxic and sort of stays in there. So I met all these near-death experiencers, and I was high as a kite, because here I was walking on air. One woman who was there, whose son had also made that journey into the light, she was so high, she had to sit down, and I knew what the high was. I knew that I was in the presence of the light so strongly that it felt like I was floating, literally, through that whole conference. But I felt that before in my life, and I knew what it felt like, so I was like enjoying it. This woman was really scared of that because the vibrations were so high, and I know that sounds new agey, sorry, but the frequency of people's beliefs were so high and everyone was so filled with joy that everyone was brought up a notch. And I think it made her dizzy. And she said to me, I'm so dizzy from all this information. Something's happening to me. So I sent her for a massage. I said, go get grounded. I didn't need to be grounded. I was feeling like, the lift was occurring. And so I stayed. I remember walking down the hallway to my hotel room, and I felt like I was waving, like I was in a wave, and it was wonderful. Talk about an experience. And these people were for real, and I needed to know that. I needed to sit there, hold their hands, and watch them look at me with their hearts open, telling me, over and over that nobody dies. Nobody dies. And in synchronicity, it was funny because when I left the conference, I was in the airport about to leave, and this older man my age came up to me and sat down, and I said, were you at the conference? And he said, yes. And I said, well, why did you go? And he said, oh, I went because I'm 60 and I want to know where I'm going. So, I thought this is a perfect ending to this whole thing. This whole conference was about synchronicity and understanding, and it was the greatest thing that could have come into my, the higher self brought that in and gave that to me, and that was what pushed me. That experience is what pushed me through this huge hoop to know that there was no death. That was it. I could read about it all day, but that's when it took it from here and put it into here. I could read every story online about people's near-death experiences, but I had to go to that conference to find out there was no death. Then it went to here. Okay? So that was huge. And while I was at the IONS conference, I had met a few people who had told me about the Monroe Institute. There's no coincidence about that either, Oh, and at the IONS conference, there was one woman who said something, and she had a really profound near-death experience, and she said to me, when you take your last breath, I want you to surf that last breath straight to your son. And she did a reading on me, and she told me JOeY was, in the room, and again, his words were, in essence, stop worrying about me. I'm fine. I'm with Dad. Enough. I think he's starting to get sort of annoyed with me at this point because I'm out there all the time looking for him. Quit. He told George Anderson, tell her to stop trying to knock down the gates of heaven. And she's banging on them, But I'm going to. I told JOeY, too bad. I'm going to do it anyway. So I heard about the Monroe Institute, and I will get into that soon enough. One thing that happened not too recently, a few months ago, was I sometimes still have guilt, like I've done something wrong, like I wasn't a good mother, like I hadn't. And all the people I know that would say to me, oh, you shouldn't have guilt. You didn't do anything wrong. That doesn't work. You can say that to me all day. I've got to hear it from JOeY, or I've got to hear it from my higher power. I've got to hear it from God. I've got to hear it from something more than just people saying it to me. I know they mean well, but, guilt is very toxic. And that was the one big thing the Catholic Church was really good at. So, it's your fault. You should feel guilty. You're not a good mother, blah, 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 blah. So I thought, and besides that, JOeY's fine. JOeY's in JOeY. JOeY's home. I didn't do anything wrong, but there was this part of me that kept nagging at me, and I know it's the egoic conditioning that I had done something wrong, that I had not answered the phone one night when he did try to call me. Or I'd answered it and told him, JOeY, I need to go back to sleep, or the time that I yelled at him when he was 6, that stuff would come up. The ego is very naughty. The egoic conditioning is naughty. It'll come in and it'll say, you weren't good, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. And so that was still there, and I didn't realize it so strongly until one day I was listening to a YouTube video of a woman who had literally not only flatlined, but she was her body was being taken down to the morgue because the doctors assumed that she had crossed over. That's pretty profound when your body is literally on the gurney and you're being taken down to the morgue. That's when everyone else says that your body has passed. That's pretty strong inclination that it's passed. So she said that she had a really strong near-death experience, or death experience, where she had crossed over into the light, and she knew her body had crossed, and yet she still chose to come back into it, and she still had some things to do. So the guy who was taking her down to the morgue noticed that she was moving and freaked out and brought her back upstairs, and they resuscitated her. And that was the day, and this happened a couple months ago actually. That was the day that I learned that JOeY could have chosen. I'll be right back.